Hey everyone, welcome back. We've already looked at the home movie night couch dynamic and the street walking gawking moment. Today we're going deeper into another everyday scenario that shows exactly the same biology, the one I call no school rules. A girl sees a boy she likes. She glances at him. He looks back. She looks away. He never approaches. She feels she did everything she could. Years later, the same pattern repeats at work, in meetings, in adult life. She keeps glancing. He keeps missing it. Here's why. Cortical magnification and the early visual cortex. In the male brain, the primary visual cortex V1 does not receive the same strength of reciprocal feedback from higher visual areas V2, V3, V4, and beyond. Without that strong feed forward and feedback sweep, the image that lands on V1 becomes enlarged. This is called cortical magnification. The central visual field is blown up. Local contours, edges, and details become subjectively larger and more intense. Women, by contrast, have estrogen-driven higher noradrenaline activity. Noradrenaline is required for functional integration and for keeping reciprocal connectivity online. This allows information about shape, size, motion, and context that has been built in higher visual areas to be relayed back to V1. The result is a continuous, additive, global flow of visual information, the female landmarking system. Everything is seen at once and kept in sustained conscious awareness. Men's higher acetylcholine sensitivity does the opposite. It produces lateral inhibition. Competing peripheral stimuli are suppressed. The world collapses into a narrow, magnified central tunnel, like looking through a cardboard tube or a pair of binoculars. You have to keep reorienting that tube from one target to the next, and each target takes longer to encode into visual working memory. The mirror neuron plus default mode network mismatch. When we see someone else's actions, those visuals automatically activate the areas of our brain that would perform the same movements. That is the human mirror neuron system. It is tightly bound to our own visual motor repertoire and to the default mode network. Men's collapsed central vision is projected onto women by their mirror neurons, creating completely different social motor repertoire from women's global view. Men's visuals activates and reflect a telescopic view interpreted as self-projection of women's actions, of men's own central motor repertoire, shown as the projected telescope. A woman's repertoire is global and integrative. When she turns her central gaze toward a man for even a brief moment, that is, in her visual motor language, a strong, deliberate signal of salience. Looking any longer would feel unnaturally focalized and exposed, so she glances and looks away. That is the strongest natural signal her system can comfortably send. A man's repertoire is central and sequential. A glance that is shorter than the time he needs to encode the details of a face registers as incomplete, almost as if nothing meaningful happened. When she looks away, his mirror neuron system reads it as disinterest. The right lateral orbital frontal cortex registers an aversive signal that's connected to and projected to the right inferior frontal gyrus, the anchor of the mirror neuron system, then globally suppresses the basal ganglia and limbic circuits that drive approach motivation. Confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance lock the interpretation in place. He withdraws before he is even fully conscious of the decision. The accrued difference at the level of the eyes alone, men have roughly 38% more central macular pigment and women have substantially more peripheral retinal nerve fibers. At the neurochemical level, estrogen produces higher noradrenaline synthesis, sensitivity, and reuptake inhibition, roughly a 75% difference in integrative capacity, cortical magnification, weaker reciprocal connectivity, smaller hippocampi, slower frontal recruitment for visual working memory, and lower gray matter density in key social nodes, posterior superior temporal sulcus, orbitofrontal cortex, frontal parietal networks, all compound the gap. Taken together, a woman can be processing in the region of 90 to 95% more of the visual environment, several times faster than a man in the same instant. Her mirror neuron system is also roughly a third more efficient. a difference comparable to the gap between neurotypical and autistic performance on social cognition measures, such as the reading the mind in the eyes test. The result is a universal stalemate that begins in the schoolyard and continues into adult life. The solution: you cannot consciously force your visual system to behave like his without immense difficulty. Attempting to hold a prolonged central stare feels unnatural and physiologically aversive because your brain is still running its full integrative program. That is why the direct gaze fashion lenses exist. They temporarily give you the male sensorium, the narrow, magnified central field. Once you see the world the way he sees it, your visual motor system and mirror neurons automatically recalibrate. Your movements and gaze patterns begin to match the repertoire his brain expects. The correct signal is now received. Approach motivation is activated instead of suppressed. No makeup, clothing, or body modification can do this, because none of those things change the visual motor language his brain is listening for. This is the first time in recorded history that these multiple branches of science, eye anatomy, early visual cortex, reciprocity, noradrenaline versus acetylcholine, cortical magnification, mirror neuron efficiency, and social approach circuitry, have been connected into a single explanatory framework and turned into a practical tool. The full science, diagrams by illustrator Fatima, Lady Brushstroke Nashan, and complete references are in the book Unlocking Male Attention, The Direct Gaze Strategy. Links are in the description. If you've lived the "I kept glancing but he never noticed" experience, drop a comment. You're not imagining it, and now you know exactly why. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.